NFT land. I'm CreatoriousRex, and we are here to talk about NFTs. We're talking about PFPs a lot today because we're going to be heavy on Bored Ape Yacht Club. Boy, what an incredible 7 days. And with me, I have my co-host, Skot Leach. Hello, Scott.
Hello. It's exciting 7 days. How's it going?
It's going well. You know, when they started using GM as part of the ethos of the NFT community, I really didn't know that I was going to have a GM like this morning. I've had other good things happen to me from the NFT space, but you get up 8:30 my time, 5:30 your time. There was a gift, an airdrop that turns out to be pretty valuable and more valuable or more cash than I spent on my mutant, and I bought it in secondary. I know you've got some old ones, but I bet you felt pretty good this morning.
Yeah. I mean, I was expecting it to be a nice surprise, but it was even nicer than I expected. This is this whole thing of rewarding folks that got in early. It feels pretty awesome.
Absolutely does. Okay, so everybody, we're going to talk about a lot of things today. One of the things we're going to talk about is Bored Ape Yacht Club. In fact, it has been an incredible 7 days in the Bored Ape community. So we're going to hit on a number of different items. And you know what? They're all kind of related. And so that'll be a really good time to talk about it. It's actually better to talk about it today than it would have been 4 or 5 days ago. We're also going to talk about a couple of brands and NFT lands because we don't want to leave that out. And there was a couple interesting stories that we have towards the end. And before we get started, I want to say if you are an artist or you know an artist or you're a creator that wants to partner with an artist, but mostly for artists, but other people can consider this. We run something called an NFT Artist Accelerator. And it's basically like a startup accelerator, maybe inspired by something like Y Combinator, if you guys are familiar with that. Because what we recognized was that, you know what, an NFT project is kind of like a tech startup. It's just usually you've got engineers getting together and they need to fill in the blanks. They need to know marketing, accounting, HR, all these different things where they don't have that skill because they're focused on building the product. The accelerators help them get through that, and it helps them get some funding at the end, meet investors, those types of things. Well, we recognized early on that this is actually very similar to what artists face. And we thought somebody should do this. And for months, a friend of mine who's an artist said, oh, geez, everybody needs these help. And, that's just like an accelerator. Somebody should do that. And so eventually we wound up doing that. We are just about to finish our first class, 14 artists. So I have 2 things to tell you about that. And maybe if we have time at the end, we'll talk about them in a little bit more detail. But first of all, if you are an artist and you'd like to be in our second class, it's going to kick off in May. Go to Niftorian.com, learn a little bit about what the accelerator is. What we do is we help you. There's no obligation from you, but we actually give you assistance. We work with a bunch of different people. This is sort of our give back from the Niftorian community to artists in the space to help them become more successful and overcome some of those hurdles. So if you go to Niftorian.com, just click on the Accelerator tab, and you can read a little bit more about it. You can see the artists who are in the first class, and you can apply. It takes like a minute to apply, but it gives us some basic information so that we can follow up with you. So that's the first thing. If you're interested in that, if you thought that you want to do a project, or maybe you've done a project, it didn't go as well as you wanted, you've got another idea, we've got that type of support as well within the program. So that's the NFT Artist Accelerator. And for our first class of graduates of the NFT Artist Accelerator, this is the world's first NFT Artist Accelerator, by the way. We're going to have demo day in just a couple of weeks on March 31st. So we'll put it in the links below if you guys want to join. Anybody who watches an Niftorian show is certainly welcome to attend that. It is semi-closed, so we're not just doing a public availability for that. But you'd get to see 14 artists present their NFT projects before everyone else. So some people will find that pretty valuable. Okay. Now, there is a project that a lot of people wish they'd known about before everyone else, and that's this one. These are 3 handsome devils on the screen. Right in the middle, we'll talk about this. This is one of the original Bored Apes. Now, did you mint this, or did you buy this in secondary?
No, I bought this in secondary. I bought right after mint. I think the first Bored Ape I bought was 0.38 ETH at the time. So it had minted, it had gone up a bit. I got it. And then someone offered me, I think around 4.5 or 5 ETH, and the floor was a little over 3 at that time. So I sold the one I had because I wanted more, and I bought 2 from that. And this is one of the 2 that I bought.
I
So I
got it.
bought this
Oh,
guy for 4 ETH was the price for this guy. So he wasn't my very first ape, but he's the one I've stuck with.
wait. So you sold one for 4.5?
Yeah, I
And
got
then
an
you
offer on it, and the floor was around. I sold it for about a 1 ETH over the floor, and I
okay.
was like, okay, this is good because I want more anyway. And I liked the guy I had, but I just got one off the floor because at the time that's what I had the means to do. Uh,
Right.
and then I saw this one and I really liked it. So I picked up him and one other, and this is the one I've stuck with. And that's
Got it.
his mutant to the right there. I
So that
use
looks like
serum.
M1 serum.
Yep, I got the M1 serum for that guy and used it to create the one on the right. And those are the 2 that
Got it.
I'm holding on to.
Okay. And the one on the left is my mutant. I call him Tiresias. I bought him. I actually wound up buying a mutant for somebody else because he was having trouble transferring money between accounts. He really wanted this one. And so I was like, yeah, I'll just buy it. And then like, when you have your money, I'll just send it to you next week. And he's like, yeah, no problem. So I just went and I bought it, and I had his in my wallet for a week. And then it came to the day that I had to transfer it to him. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'll send it over to you. And I was like, oh, geez, I kind of like having that in my wallet. And I was like, oh, I didn't go and register in the BAYC Discord with it because it wasn't going to be mine. So I didn't feel like that would be right. But I would like to do that. So I was just like, so I just looked at the floor, and then I went up. Usually I go up. A lot of times if you go up just a little bit from the floor, you'll find something for just a few $100s more. So I felt really good about when I got this. Mutants were pretty reasonable then. In fact, this was in the fall, early fall, but it was after they had gone up and then back down to right around where they launched at. When they first started trading, I think they were going around 3.5 to 4. And so I felt really good about that ever since. And it's just, I don't really care about the floor of it anymore because there's so much value in just being part of that community. Got in the Adidas drop, and I got into the secondary one, the resource that they did where, they you contributed an image and they created something out of what we contributed. We got Ape Tokens today, and I think that's the thing we should talk about. So let's go over. So this, I don't know if people can see this, it's a little small, but it says connecting to MetaMask, connection established, claiming ape, hang tight. This is still on my screen, by the way. I did this morning, many hours ago. I just wanted to see how long it would take for the website to resolve. It does not resolve, but I can tell. But it took maybe 15 minutes or so for the transaction to clear on the blockchain. And as a mutant holder, I was entitled to a little over 2,000 Ape coins, which they set, the BAYC folks set at a price of $1, but they were immediately trading for much over that. And so here's our cool thing, manna from heaven. And then I know that you were able to, you had a mutant, but then you also had a Bored Ape. And I think those were a little over 10,000 per Bored Ape, correct?
Yeah. It was, I think 12,061 coins, Ape coins I ended up with, which was, like you said, a great surprise.
Anyone who's not in NFT or crypto is going to be like, yeah, where's this money come from? And that's a fair question. And even if you're in NFTs and not into crypto, you might be like, where's this come from? So we'll get into that a little bit in terms of if that value is really there. But last night there was a tweet. So this would have been on the 16th. Today is the 17th, by the way. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you from my motherland in Ireland. Introducing ApeCoin, a token for culture, gaming, and commerce used to empower a decentralized community building at the forefront of Web3. And there's a bunch of other information about that. But this was the announcement where they said, hey, we have this new website, apecoin.com. Go there at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, and you'll be able to claim your coins. And interestingly enough, you can see that shortly after 8:30, someone was able to unload some of their Ape coins for almost $40 a piece. You'll see that 823 sort of somewhat obscured behind the 3940. That's what it settled at a while ago. It's actually, I think it's down. It's in the sevens right now. And when you watch this, who knows? It could be 20. It could be 4. I don't know. But you can see had this real big spike because there was no availability. So I'm sure some people just wanted to grab some early coins. There were a couple transactions down at around 20 and then 15, and then they tended to settle in somewhere between $7 and $10, and that's where it's been most of the day, and that's why that looks flat. So first of all, what are your thoughts on the price action?
Not super surprising, but still great. Yeah, there's always the first little minutes, hour of whatever's going on there. It's funny hearing everyone's reaction to this and like, oh, don't, it's a comments from like, oh, this is a rug, or this is like, don't do it. I'm excited about this. Like, I think that these guys already have established utility. There's a community around it. Like, I like this token.
Yeah, it seems like it has some potential legs because it certainly has the in-game currency franchise type of feel to it. And then they're going to do a lot of other things with it, which we'll talk about in a minute. I guess we should probably just hit on a couple of the details here. So there's 1 billion total coins in the contract. There will never be more than 1 billion. So it's a fixed supply. So that's something that people will be interested in. 62% of the supply is going to the community. Now that's broken down in a bunch of different ways. And they had 15% claimable this morning. There's some that are holding reserve, some are for partners, some are for team members. In particular, I'm interested in that angle too. This looks like a mechanism that some of the founders and early team members are going to be able to use to get liquidity now, as opposed to selling a big portion of equity to the extent that they've offered that, or to have to sell one of their BAYC assets in order to have liquidity. So I thought that was really interesting that there's a significant amount set aside for them, which is fine. I was having a conversation with someone in the BAYC Discord today, and they were worried about this. I said, no, I actually think this is better because now they're less incentivized to sell it to some big company. Because if they have access to capital, they don't have to worry about that, pay the bills. Most of them are set for life, which is great. But then they can just focus on this as like a mission, and they don't have to worry about trying to find the highest bidder because there's enough money there for them to feel more than comfortable, I would guess.
Yeah. I think that all resonates, and that sounds accurate to me. And I think I agree with that sentiment. All this stuff is tricky when you get down to it and sort of wonder about motivations and what people are going to do. And I think it's fair. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to boil down to what these as individuals do. But to your point, I think it does allow them a lot more flexibility than, selling equity to a VC or something. This allows other folks to get in, and it allows them to fund themselves and to be comfortable. And for everything that we see and how fast this all seems to happen, there's lots of folks who have been working behind the scenes potentially for a long time and have made all kinds of sacrifices to make this stuff happen. They deserve their shot, is my take.
Yeah, I mean, they created something amazing, and some of it is skill, a lot of it's luck, but they've created something amazing, and so far they've been excellent stewards of it. So they're going to get some benefit out of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing before when I said that I was excited about the coin. I mean, this project from the get-go has demonstrated like its ability to consistently deliver new things, from game experiments to merchandise to Kennel Club, mutants, all these different things that they're continuing to try, and they're continuing to ship stuff. even not knowing, one of the most powerful things I've observed about all of this space, NFTs and coins in general, is it gives creators the ability to fund something as they're developing it, and it gives
Right.
the person funding it a voice in that process, in a way that hasn't really existed up to now. Not just in the form of voting, but in the form of, you know, what they talk about and what they do as a community. As someone developing products, having that feedback available to you right from the get-go is massively powerful.
Yeah, those Discord groups
Yeah.
are like focus groups. You know,
Yep.
they're both you find both cheerleaders and critics in there, and some combination
Sure.
of the two. And you know, I'm sure it's a useful signal for people who are building product to figure out what's important here. The other thing you mentioned, voting, along with the coin, there's going to be a DAO. The DAO is going to be focused on. There's going to be an NFT. So it's not as clear to me how that's going to play out. There's a little bit of information, but I think there's some more in. They have some FAQs around this. Not a lot of information yet, but I think that's also interesting. They're moving more towards clear community involvement, which has not been a thing so far. I mean, community involvement, yes, they could participate, but there wasn't a way for a mechanism other than just asking people that they had for people to participate based on their ownership. And so this is that's going to be one of the other features of the coin drop.
Yep.
Okay, so here's another interesting thing that came out. Animoca Brands, people have heard of them. I think they've got investments in like 170 different NFT and metaverse companies, including the Sandbox being their premier one. And they're going to be adopting Ape Coin in their secret project with BAYC. And you can register something as brewing. This was actually very useful. We talked about this last week in terms of Bored Ape had a cryptic tweet and said, hey, go to this link. And then it tried to walk you through a KYC process. And we're like, oh, for what? We can't say, but it's not this and it's not that. One of the things they said it was not was ApeCoin, which we talked about last week. But I think you and I had speculated it might be something along the lines of a metaverse and land sales and things like that. Well, that turned out to be pretty interesting. There was a deck that was distributed or that was leaked, which is purported to be a pitch deck that Bored Ape's founders were using as they were trying to raise money in Silicon Valley from venture capitalists to fund some of their expansion efforts. And I've heard two different things about this. Well, I've heard three. I've heard one is like, this is the deck because I got it from somebody who was, they're basically being courted as an investor. Another was, this was correct, but it's no longer correct. And a third was, this just isn't right. This isn't what we were using. So it's fabricated. I don't know which one's true, but you know what? It's really interesting. So it's got BAYC versus MAYC, which was a game. And that was in January. And this is hard to see just because it's a low resolution image. So I apologize that we don't have it better than that. We've got the Ape token and Metaverse 100K land sale. And that's and a merch drop. And that's for March. Well, we're in March. Guess what? ApeCoin just launched. Could the land sale be right around the corner? Well, it looks like maybe that KYC effort had something to do with land. So before we get into the rest of this roadmap, which would be roadmap 3.0, because Bored Ape already has roadmap 2.0, what do you think of this?
I mean, they've been talking about Metaverse and they released that, you know, that cool visual picture. So it seems inevitable to me that that's going to happen. As to whether it's the thing that we had the option to KYC for, I'm not sure. Maybe. I guess that lines up. I do know that, you know, having worked in tech and product, like nothing on a sheet like this is ever set in stone, because even if you think it is, it changes constantly. So who knows if what the deal is there. But Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, we talk about the metaverse a lot here. I know they're working on it. I would love to see it come out sooner than later, and I think they're well positioned to do it because of all the community and brand equity they have. This, I want to see lots of people start building metaverse what they think it's going to be, so we can quickly find what works and what doesn't, because the longer we stay in this period of like, what exactly is this thing, who's going to do what, the more it kind of loses its momentum. So yeah, I'm excited for them to do something.
Risk it is that Facebook Meta Horizons becomes the default.
Yes.
Let's get some good options on the table, facts on the ground about what a metaverse is. That is not that. Okay, so my theory is the KYC. This is maybe a self-serving theory or like an optimistic theory, given my position. But why would they need KYC if they were just selling land? Maybe they would need it just to facilitate that. But then they would need KYC from everybody. I have a feeling that you would have KYC because they're going to do a land airdrop.
Interesting. I can get with that. I like that.
Yeah, we would love that. That would be amazing.
Maybe they're going to give away real land with the virtual land. Maybe they'll buy an island somewhere, and if you own the virtual land, you'll get a little sliver of tenth of an acre of real.
Well, there's the
Metaverse
land. One. It's 100,000 land sale, so that's not $100,000, or there's no currency associated with it. I think it's 100,000 parcels, right? So that would make sense. There's some other details under there which I actually can't make out at the moment because of the poor font choice colors. But in any event, the KYC, I keep thinking about that. Why would they need the KYC? So KYC is know your customer. It's a financial regulatory requirement. It came up from a few different things. A lot of it was because of concerns about financing of terrorism. And so all sorts of different financial institutions do this. And the regulatory folks, particularly in the United States, have really been pushing this into the crypto market recently. With sort of the anticipation of more regulation. So, maybe they don't know, maybe they don't need this, but I have a feeling that like there's some permanence about the land that's not the same as just a token. And so maybe there's something there, and there's going to be giveaways. I don't know. It might be weird though that you have some people that KYC is like everyone going to have to KYC just to buy land. There was a tweet by, I think it was Gargamel, who's one of the founders of BAYC, who when he said, hey, everyone wants Ape Coin now. This was 6 weeks ago or something like that. But it takes a lot of careful planning, basically, in order to do this in such a way that we all don't get arrested. And so they said it had nothing to do with the airdrop, which makes sense because I think anyone could claim it, whether they KYC'd or not yet, for the coins. But maybe there's something about the land. That would be my guess, my best guess, because otherwise, why would they?
Yeah, I mean, or the other thing I keep thinking about is like they're backed by a VC, and this could be sort of trying to bring it into a more secure it against whatever regulation is coming, right?
But it was not required.
And what better way to do that than true, that's true. But that seems like table stakes up to now to me. Like asking for KYC for that coin might have been pretty devastating in terms of backlash. Whereas this feels like this still got backlash, but somehow look, if you don't want it, don't claim it.
Right.
I don't know.
Which could be the same with the coins, but I think that's a really good nuance that you've pulled out. That the coins, it's different. Plus, with coins, liquidity is really, really important.
Yeah.
Anything that gets in the way of liquidity could be problematic. I think there might be some other things too, which have to do with whether it be treated as a security or not. But one of the things we actually did not talk about. Go ahead.
It might be a side chain.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is pure speculation, but if they were looking to build a metaverse and they needed it to work quickly, like we know that Ethereum transactions can take time. If they need to be on a blockchain that is snappier, I don't know. I'm total speculation on my part, but I know based on my experience working with side chains that KYC is a big deal. I don't know.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
speculation.
Well, Yatsu, who's the founder of this Animoca and like a principal at Sandbox, lots of discussion and some misunderstanding why KYC is important, right? It's critical to the future, and then it points basically to this has been building over months. Animoca brands will launch the first phase. There's more to come. Again, Animoca, the metaverse tie-in, also the play to earn gaming. So the other angle could be that it had to do with they wanted to get rid of the friction for the play to earn gaming upfront, but to me that doesn't seem like as good of a reason as the land sale. So it could be any of these things, but the one thing that I don't let me forget to talk about is whether the coin will be a tracking stock. But I just want to go through a couple more things of the leaked. The Genesis drop will be 100,000 plots. 30% will go to BAYC leaving 70K for public sale, and another 100K in the follow-up drop. So we saw those from the other page, which showed the roadmap. The conservative estimate for land price is 1 ETH each, 200 million in primary sales for the Genesis drop alone. Okay, so that would suggest that they are not going to give it away, but you're gonna have to pay for it. With that said, who knows? Maybe there will be a discount. I think at the very least, if you're a holder of a token, you probably have like a 1-to-1 opportunity, or maybe two, maybe more. But 30%, there's about 30,000 tokens between mutants and Bored Apes. So that seems like 30,000 set aside, and maybe we have to pay 1 ETH for them. We'll see.
Unless the 1 ETH for the other 70%, right?
It could be. Well, it says 200 million for the Genesis drop alone, which is 2 ETH, right? Which doesn't really add up. So I don't know.
Yeah. Even at this point, the base price doesn't even seem to matter with these guys.
Well, there's somewhere in there too that we can talk about valuation. Because I was having a conversation with someone in another Discord this morning about value. Oh no, this was on Twitter. Because he's like, well, if you look at the price of the coins today, it's an implied value of 10 billion. That was a short period of time when the coins were trading for about $10, and there's a billion of them. So simple math. He said, I'd be inclined to buy in at 1 to 4 billion. So I think the first potential fallacy in that reasoning is that should the coin be viewed as a tracking stock for the value of the whole thing? I'm not sure that's true, but let's say it is true. Then the question is like, what's the value? Some of this data suggests that they might be looking at as much as $500 million in revenue this year. And for a company at this growth, like 20x would not be unreasonable at all in terms of revenue multiple. So saying 10 billion on that, to me, and that's before you even consider CryptoPunks and Meebits, which we'll talk about in a minute, seems not too far off. You might even consider it to be a little bit higher because there's a lot of organizations that are getting much higher multiples than that on revenue. And with revenue that's more tenuous than what we've seen so far with Bored Ape. So we talked about this recently, how there was a a rumor about there being a $5 billion valuation that they were going for in the financing round. So the 1 to 4 billion is below that. I think 4 billion was sort of the other number that people floated. So maybe it's okay. I don't know, but I have to think of the coins as not just representative of the value of the overall project, because they don't actually, the coins don't actually have a claim on the revenue streams.
Correct. Yeah. 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 I'm no good at this part of it. Like I can't, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that, except that here's something interesting I think about the coins. It's a way for people, it's yet another way for people to get into this community without having to drop a lot of cash on even a kennel club now. You can own a little bit of Ape.
They're up in like 7 or 8 ETH, the dogs.
Yeah. Yep. But this, I mean, if you look at
nothing usually.
Yeah. If you look at the Sandbox so Animoca, look at the Sandbox and how they have their marketplace, these screens you have that you're displaying now.
Yep.
The idea that it's exciting, the idea of a coin having actual utility, like I can start spending it on stuff. This is something that we haven't really been able to do much. In the Sandbox, you can do it in their marketplace, but the Sandbox isn't really even live yet. So having a place where I can go and buy things with my coin, there are lots of people who are not investors who hold a shitload of cryptocurrency right now, and they're spending it on NFTs. I think because it's what they can buy with their NFTs. I think if even just Tesla, if a lot of these companies just started putting a connect your wallet and buy this right now and priced it in ETH, I think we'd start to see a lot of people spending crypto on physical goods. And the idea that this Ape coin might have immediate utility in a metaverse is huge, because I just haven't seen a use case yet where a coin isn't thought of primarily as an investment. Or as a mechanism to allow voting in a DAO or something like that. Yeah, that's exciting to me.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. That's like a perfect idea. If we go back to this picture we had earlier, in the upper left, we had for March a merch drop. And then if we go down a couple screens again, we see ApeCoin will be the currency for our metaverse. So that would make sense. Like you're playing the game, like mutants versus apes. You might be able to win coins, you might be able to pay for things, you might be able to trick out your ape with different type of attire. There might be other experiences in there. But what about merch? What about dropping all these coins on people, and then the next week allow them to spend those coins to buy hoodies or something else? So it's been a while since we've had a merch drop from Bored Ape, a couple months at least, maybe 3. And so it's sort of time for that once again. And it'd be really cool if people could basically acquire it for free because they're just spending their coins.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes perfect sense to me. And this is a spot where coins become really interesting, is when a specific coin is used as the only mechanism to buy something or to participate, it has added value at that time, right? If even in their metaverse sale, the only way to buy the land is with ApeCoin, if that was the case.
Okay, well, let's talk about
that. Go and you can go and convert on whatever exchange you want, but the fact that you're getting into ApeCoin, you're getting people holding it, it's going to get interesting, I think.
I'm assuming we'll see like ape staking, right? There's actually some information.
There's already a liquidity pool.
There's already information for it. Yeah, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen a way, maybe it's out there by now. I haven't seen a way for you to actually stake your coins, which you would think would be something would come. But if we think about the Sandbox, right? You can buy land with sand, or you can buy it with Ethereum. I think Decentraland's the same. You can use Mana or Ethereum, correct? So I would assume for the, a lot of people got more than one ETH in the coin drop, right? They could use Ape. So they don't even have to drop the land for free. Say, we just gave you more than enough to pay for your plot of land. So I'm wondering, I'm guessing I think there's basically a 5-to-1 ratio, the way between the apes and the mutants. And there was some sense that they looked at the price action between the two and tried to balance it that way. So that was easy because you basically give more value explicitly to the longer term play, but also it reflects like market forces. So this, I also wonder from a land standpoint if there'll be different sizes and mutants will be able to buy a single plot, whereas the full apes will be able to do a 5.
Yeah. Or that
Five or
what Sandbox does, right? Like the premium spots that are next to bigger estates and or have extra added items with them or something like that.
It's gonna be like an airline seating chart. Like you try to go in and you're like,
go. Yeah,
nope, you can't get that. You have to be a 1K flyer to get that seat. Or you can pay $300 extra.
I just thought of something really interesting, and I don't know if any land and metaverse projects are doing this, but a notion of having to stake to lease land. So you own the land so long as you have coins staked, but as soon as you unstake, your lease expires. They could do interesting things around that too. Like we've looked at the benefits of staking in terms of, stake and earn rewards on all of these different DeFi projects. But the notion of staking to earn utility in a metaverse is kind of interesting. Even as a landowner, like whether I could do that to lease land or whether as a landowner, I could allow someone to stake to, for the right to lease. There's interesting things there, I think.
Well, that's interesting too. Then if you sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have so first of all, I'll just back up. If you require people, let's say to hold 500, let's say it's 100 ape coins in order to be able to maintain the land, right? And you've got 200,000 plots that they're talking about in the first 2 drops. So that's 20 million of the 1 billion, right? That are not going to move. So that's really interesting because you basically are setting a floor for how much transaction or what the transaction volume could be. Because a lot of people, it's going to be stickier if people have to give that up. Now, there's probably some way that you can sell your piece and then you can unstake, and so then, but it's definitely a mechanism that should create more scarcity if they do require that. It's not clear to me if there's only going to be 200,000 plots. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think there'll probably be many more than that. So they'll be able to release those over years. But at some point, you're going to come against a scarcity issue.
Yes. Yeah.
So, all right. All right. So just this other thing too, that I think is useful. Some people have told me that they like us talking about these things because of what we've done so far, we have maybe a different perspective than that occurred to them. And this is a great little point that they say on here. Using ApeCoin will unify the currency between reality and real gameplay. I don't know exactly what they're getting at there. You might have an idea, but I will say that going back to your other point, these coins, it's another way for people to be part of the Bored Ape community at a much lower buy-in level, so they can feel like they have some access to some things. It might be a way for them to level up, to accumulate ape coins at some point, particularly if they increase in value, that maybe they'd be able to flip into an ape or a dog or something like that. And the fungible tokens, as opposed to the non-fungible tokens, are actually really useful to create velocity within an economy, because you look at the NFTs, they're kind of like houses. They're sticky assets because people have an emotional attachment to them, or They have a certain buy-in price and expectation of selling. They don't want to sell below what they bought, or maybe they do. And then maybe they become known as that because they use it for their PFP. So giving it up it's more than just an economic transaction. And they might lose access to certain types of things or friends, like Mutant Cartel or something like that. You're no longer a member. So it's going to be stickier. And so even though we do see pretty good transaction volume amongst the NFTs, it's going to be less than fungible tokens. And when you put fungible tokens in, you can put them at much lower denominations. So that's easier for people to buy in, but it's also easier to create transactions. And people don't really hold any affinity towards a coin because a coin's a coin.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can give up 100 today. They have 10 left. They still have 10. They could get 100 tomorrow. It's not like, I just sold that ape and I can never get it back. It's just like, there's this one mutant that I really wanted and I was waiting for something else to happen. It was at 5 ETH for a long time, but I had another one. I didn't have a lot of liquidity. And then I missed it, just like you sort of missed it where you sold.
Yeah.
I missed it because I was going to buy like the next week. And then all of a sudden it pumped up to 12 and then 15 into 20. And then it didn't matter. I didn't have the liquidity to purchase.
Yeah. That's a fantastic point. I mean, coins are different, and we treat them differently. And there's so much you could read into that message about uniting reality and metaverse or whatever else. It's awesome. I know that the KYC thing, for whatever reason, makes me think about physical items, which there's no reason for that to happen, but that's just where my mind goes to. The idea of a Bored Ape coffee shop or something that takes Ape Coin that you physically go to, like a actual coffee shop in the world, is really fascinating. And the things you could do around that we start to think about, like imagine if you staked Ape into that coffee shop. They had some sort of liquidity pool that you could stake into, and that got you 1 free cup of coffee every day. Or if holding a certain NFT that you bought from that coffee shop allowed you to have a free cup of coffee every day. Like there's so many real world kind of part reward program, part subscription things that you can do in this space that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
I feel like of all the projects that are happening right now, BAYC is equipped to pull something like that off.
Yes.
Not specifically the coffee shop example, but something like that. Even a conference where everything was apes. Yeah.
Yeah, they have physical space already. So that like those things could go in. I actually usually think of like KYC being for purely financial transactions. And so I hadn't really considered this until we were just talking, but maybe it's the DAO tokens that have precipitated this. Maybe that's the more important thing. Because they have certain types of rights that the other assets do not.
I guess that makes sense. I think the only reason my mind goes there is because it requires you enter, okay, what's your address and you can now be located in the world and you have an identity. And that means that you can go to places and acquire physical things.
It is really hard to be anonymous or pseudonymous in this world. Every time you want to do something, somebody wants to expose you. It's all about doxing. But yeah, okay. So this has been fun talking about those things because we've got the coins, we've got the metaverse, we already had the game. We've got some discussion around physical world places. So some of the discussion in the Bored Ape Discord is talking about maybe the center of gravity for BAYC winding up in Miami. And having more facilities there and, activities other places as well, but that being sort of a central locus, which would be interesting. Florida has been, it's obviously no income tax, but it's tried to position itself as crypto friendly. So if you're going to be in the States, it's maybe not as friendly as Wyoming, but it's probably in your top 5. There's some states like New York, which are very unfriendly, as we know. So I think that's interesting, but that becomes interesting too, though, right? Because if I'm
if that is their headquarters and I'm another NFT project, or I'm a small bakery or whatever, it might be of interest to me to get a bunch of Ape Coin and then start accepting Ape Coin as a payment method in my physical place, because
Oh yeah.
I don't know, there's interesting real world implications to
Yeah,
that.
that is
Anyway,
absolutely, that is
I'll stop
absolutely.
interrupting.
Well, and I wonder if they can KYC people who live in New York for whatever they're trying to do.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, you can KYC people, but I don't know that they would, because it's a cryptocurrency related activity. I don't know if they'd be able to give them or
Yeah.
allow them to do anything. So the other thing we should talk about is what I thought was going to be the biggest news of the week. Bored Ape Yugalabs acquired CryptoPunks and Meebits on Friday. I think the tweet came out like 7 or 8 p.m. I was sitting there thinking, normally I would have just like got on Twitter or maybe tried to spin up a thing, call you, do a quick video. I was like, maybe, but like I was just like, wow, I probably need to let this marinate and figure it out over a few days. What are your thoughts?
I mean, the fact that we're talking about this just now, how many moves these guys have made in the last week is impressive. This is huge to me. I mean, CryptoPunks is the OG project, right? I know we all know those things before that, but this is kind of the Caves at Lascaux equivalent of NFT art. I think it's a smart move. I know that Larva, they did lots of interesting things, but it seems like, and this is just an observation, it feels like they are more about creating the project and less about fostering the community. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but that seems to be their kind of what they do. So I think it's good for both of those projects that Yuga got it, because they can build it into something. I also like that they straightened out the right stuff. I know there's purists that don't like some of the moves that we've been talking about. For example, asking for KYC regardless of whether it's opt-in and getting funding from VCs and that kind of thing. But this is like, these guys are positioning themselves to be like the major player in this space right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they've got
they're doing a good job.
They have now the two most important IP rights in the space.
Yep.
I mean, maybe you could say some of POC stuff is equivalent, but obviously that's in a different space. And the pure everyday culture standpoint, these are the two collections that everybody looks at. Everything that's done in this space, certainly in the PFP realm, is compared to one or both of these collections. And for them to hold both, so first of all, I think it's a wonderful outcome, particularly with the coin drop and some of these other things we talked about, because I think it's just in the fundraising, because this is going to make it easier for Yugalabs, the creator of Bored Ape, to be independent and not feel the pressure to sell for $1 billion or 15 billion like WhatsApp did. It's going to allow them to like nurture it and build something that's going to be great for the community and take that long-term view, kind of like Bezos did with Amazon, what Jobs did with Apple, like not worry about sort of the near-term transactional stuff, take time, build it into something bigger and better. Now with CryptoPunks, I think the potential downside is, Bored Ape is a little more commercial than CryptoPunks. CryptoPunks really was the punk. I mean, it was countercultural when it happened, and it stayed countercultural. And I'm not sure Bored Ape ever was that. It was always cool, but I don't know if it was ever counterculture. And so you could be worried about that if you're a punk holder. But I think they're so busy. I don't think they're going to do anything with punks until the punks themselves ask them to do something with it.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, this is all so new, right? Like this really is these are things that are in large part built by the communities that discover them. Like, it could have been any other project that took off besides apes, right? Like it was just a perfect storm at that moment in time. But the communities, they played a huge role in that. And I think, yeah, I think we're always going to see that thing of like people saying, oh, well, they, you know, whatever, they sold out. It's like people that love early bands, right? Like, oh, I love Metallica up until Master of Puppets, and then forget that. And then other people that are like, you know, the later fans or whatever. But yeah, you find your niche, I guess.
Well, here, let me put something else out there that I think is original to me. Who do you think was the biggest beneficiary of Bored Ape Yacht Club increasing in value so significantly?
I think Pranksy was one of them. I mean, did he hold like a couple thousand apes early on or something?
Well, he might have. I think he might still have like 150. He was the one too. I think he posted on Twitter today that he basically just got 1.4 million Ape Coin. He claimed it today. It's like, oh my God. So you can think that's probably like $10 million he just got airdropped.
Yeah.
There's a lesson around holding. I think CryptoPunks were the biggest beneficiary because they were the OG. And anytime the apes moved up, CryptoPunks moved up. So there was this sense that they needed to be more valuable until we had the flippening concept start to emerge.
Actually, that's a great point. Yeah. The more we're still at that phase where the more big projects come in, the better it is for all projects, because especially at that time, I think there's more competition now, but the more viable large projects that come in, the more, everyone else is going to realize that this is real.
It's just like early on with the apes, you know, Pudgy Penguins was going, Cyberkongs were doing well, Cool Cats, you know, there's a list of them, and then everyone had to look and say, Jesus, is this what's the value of this in relation to what, right? And most of them were pegging it off of Bored Ape because it was more similar to their project, because CryptoPunks was older. They weren't really doing anything. It was really just it's more like Bitcoin. It was buy and hold, right? It's like a store of value. So I think that helped Bored Ape, obviously, having things come under and people saying, oh no, Bored Ape's a premium over that. And then that pushed up CryptoPunks until somebody started to develop the thesis. Well, geez, actually, you know, if CryptoPunks aren't going to do anything, and then like the only value is they've been around the longest, and there's like this reputational benefit, provenance, maybe somebody who's working hard at it and has pretty good provenance can be more valuable. And that's where we saw the compression come up.
Yeah, that's a great point. Super interesting. We've talked about this before too. I know also like, CrypToadz got a bump for being the on-chain anti-VC, like,
yes, up and down though.
So even up and down, but even that project was able to benefit from this news, even if they're saying it's bad. And I don't mean they as a group. I'm saying that sticking to their sort of values and philosophy, this activity has created some action around their project. And I just wonder in the future what, as influencers in the space, decide, like, what happens in 5 years if everyone decides they're going to hop on Yetis or some other project that seems somewhat dormant? Not to say Yetis is done. I know they're doing stuff, but like at any point, any of these projects could become relevant again in the future, almost the way that, like, you know, bars and hotspots go in and out of fashion. It's just interesting to think about.
I would definitely chuckle the day we talked about Yeti mooning. Talking to you about your experience there. So we didn't talk a lot about or you basically just talked about it very briefly. You mentioned the rights thing, so we should mention that. And I think it's very interesting you mentioned CrypToadz, because maybe now that CryptoPunks are part of Yuga, CrypToadz are sort of the punk counterculture thing. Maybe that'll give them a little bit of a pump. Now they have a different rights thing, and it was basically as stark a contrast as you could have had. Larva Labs basically controlled all the IP for all the punks. We were basically it was like a conservatorship or something like that. You were able to hold it and use it unless they told you couldn't use it that way. And it wasn't necessarily any long-term plan of theirs. This is basically the way it was originally created, and they were given away and all these other things. So that made sense. But then CrypToadz came up and they had a Creative Commons license. Now, Bored Ape was really innovative at the time. This was before Creative Commons, because they gave away almost all the commercial rights for using the token image that you own and doing just about anything you want with it. You just couldn't use the Bored Ape master brand, those types of things. And so that was seen maybe as a little risky. So we've talked about like Gary Vee wouldn't have done that. And it explicitly did not do that because he wanted more control. Bored Ape did, and it's a lot of people thought that that's one of the reasons they pumped so quickly, because people started using them, and it fostered this entrepreneurial and this ownership mentality in a way that punks didn't. And then we've got something like CrypToadz, who basically you can own the token, but you do not own any of the IP rights because it's all Creative Commons. So anyone can do anything they want with your toad, and you can't do anything about it. And so, I think this, I'm not sure what the better thing is, but there was a great thread between DC Investor and Punk 6529 over the last couple of days, talking about the CC0 versus some more restrictive licensing, and they had different perspectives on that. But I was interested in what you came out with, and like how you think about ownership rights when you're looking at a project.
Yeah, I as a creator in general, an artist, I love when I can have rights to something. It's super fascinating to me. And I've seen the data around giving away rights is always good. Like, despite all our efforts, like a big, whether it's record labels or studios trying to prevent movies from leaking, it always works out that when you give stuff away, it becomes more, just spreads awareness up until some threshold. Like once the population in the billions, it's probably a problem. But I think what's interesting here is that it's good that we're experimenting with lots of options, because we'll see which ones work. And I appreciate Gary Vee's perspective. I love the Ape's perspective. There's lots of ways to slice and dice rights now, and that's fantastic because you can do really unique things. It could be in the future that Gary Vee sells NFTs that let you do, you're buying the rights to put a VeeFriend on clothing, for example. So it's its own little contract just for that thing. And that could be how he's thinking about it, or not, who knows. But yeah, I like it. I like that it's being experimented with. My instinct now is I would be very skeptical as someone building a business around something if I thought that those rights could be revoked in any way. So that's something that might prevent me from doing something. But in general, I think this is, to me, one of the biggest, most interesting aspects of all this tech is rights and royalty splits. They suck, and it's a pain in the ass right now. And making that automatic in any way is huge. Snoop did it recently with those tracks he released that were, you could do what you want with them, right? So I think we're going to start to see some really interesting stuff around there. Once the artists and creative people realize what they can do with some of these things, it's gonna go nuts. Okay,
we'll leave it at that. With one caveat, we talked last week about the top 10 NFT sales in February 2022. We had CryptoPunks. We had a couple big sales over there. We had a couple very notable sales in the Ape world. Those are typically, apes and punks are typically the highest priced, unless you're talking about like a rare piece of fine art from a well-known artist. But now those are all owned by the same people. So just keep that in mind. And it may be something that punks have a certain level of intrinsic value associated with them. Those being affiliated now with apes might actually further elevate the value of the apes.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Okay, so I was inclined to say, oh, it's an hour, and you know, we said at the top though we're going to do brands in NFT land, so we have to do it. The Walking Dead are getting together with Vox, so Voxverse, if people are familiar with that, they have some clever thing about bringing things into the metaverse. I don't know. Let's see if you can see this. Let's see if we'll play this. So what you can see is it's like nice voxel stuff for a game.
Yep.
They're all about play to earn. It's it's something like characters that are like defiant. But it's all these different types of things, which are pretty cool. So that's enough. But I thought their art was pretty cool. I like, you know, some of the voxel stuff when it's done well is like really good. But they're doing a collab with Walking Dead, and there's going to be an airdrop, or not an airdrop. There's going to be a mint of 8,888 items. It's going to be these characters from the town that Vox has created, and then they're somehow going to infuse zombies into it. But I think just from a brands and NFT lands, I really like this, the entertainment angle and merging game with movie. Obviously not the first time this has been done, or, you know, television series in this case, but boy, just what a great way to get people introduced to your really cool voxel based game, and, you know, take this like great brand name, put it together, and like, since they have this town and zombies go into a town, it seemed like a perfect match to me.
Yeah, the zombies never die, right? So yeah, I think it's smart. Walking Dead, I think, there's certain like themes and brands that just seem conducive to this, to a metaverse. Like when I can explore a world and it's a property that feels like it has that innately, an IP, it feels like a good fit. Walking Dead, who knows what will happen with, you know, I'm sure Disney is working on stuff, but Star Wars, all those things, you can imagine lots of really neat metaverse implications around that kind of IP.
Maybe I have a feeling those big studios are going to struggle, because I think they're going to treat everything as too precious, and a little bit of grit, I think, goes a long way in this space.
Yeah, true.
So I could be wrong. I mean, like, they're real professionals. They do really great stuff. Yugalabs just did a really nice little video there. I was happy to see that. And let's transition. HSBC. They say they're the first global bank in the metaverse. Now, I think JP Morgan just did something with the Sandbox too. So maybe they're not a global bank. I thought they were. But in any event, they're making this claim. It doesn't really matter. They're going to do something related to sports, because they do a lot of sponsorships of sports stars and clubs and leagues. But wow, we've seen lots of things come into the Sandbox. And now we have one of the larger banks in the world.
Yeah, and it's funny, right? It's like everything. I'm sure there are people that are purists that are just shaking their heads at this, and it seems like a little bit of a bizarre move, but it makes sense to me. Like, they know, someone there knows that something is happening in this space, and things are transitioning, and banks are going to be impacted by that. And this makes sense that they would want to stay relevant and watch and observe. And what better way to do that than something like this? As a consumer, it does absolutely nothing for me, and I'm not particularly a fan of it. But I I guess in terms of it bringing credibility to the project and getting other people on board, or institutions, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I have this sense that today was the day that fun in the metaverse died. So like some of the charm of the metaverse is like there isn't banking. I mean, there is, like the whole platform is banking, but just to think about like your relationship with DeFi and the traditional banking, it's just like this
Maybe there'll be a in-world protest that everyone will go take their voxel characters.
So what will
go.
be like the Occupy Wall Street? So
yeah,
Occupy voxel.
Yeah,
land.
last week we talked about. I made the comment that I thought that the Sandbox, their whole strategy with partnerships was brilliant because they didn't discriminate against how tiny an NFT project was or how big. They were just inviting everyone in. I thought that was a really smart play. This is the other side of that sword, right? That philosophy, they're clearly applying that to institutions that don't feel like they belong here.
Yeah, and it might just because they obviously fund culture because they're really big into sports and some other things. I just thought it was actually kind of interesting. It's Hong Kong Shanghai Bank. If you guys don't know what HSBC stands for, China is actually not very crypto friendly these days. So it doesn't surprise me it's not a U.S. bank because U.S. regulators are looking fairly predatory in this area. But yeah, I wouldn't. HSBC. So we'll see. I think it's just another example of big brand in here, and I assume it's basically their marketing budget, and they're just saying, "Hey, here's a place where people are going to be. We want them to see our brand and logo because when they walk out of the metaverse, they're going to be in real life, and they're going to need banking services."
Yeah, it'll be interesting when these metaverses come alive. What it will be like to walk around, going from like Planet of the Apes Island, BAYC plot on Sandbox over to the HSBC stadium. Like what? Interesting.
The crypto.com arena? No, in HSBC stadium. Yeah, it was so funny. Okay, Skot Leach. I think that's enough for today. We went longer than planned, but we talked about a lot of things. You're Skot Leach on the Twitter. Anything else you want to direct people to?
No, I'm excited to watch the what's going on with the demo day stuff that you brought up in the beginning. I know I'm talking to one of the creators there and was going to help them with that a little bit. So
I hope you do.
People should check it out.
14 NFT artists. Some of them have PFP projects. There's 2 or 3 which are PFP projects. Most of them are fine art projects. I would say more than half of them, this will be their first presence in the NFT space at all. The others have typically done very small projects, just like launch and learn type of things. So they're trying to do like really sophisticated launches, a lot of value. So if you want to see what's coming before it's available, this is like even pre-whitelist time. Like this isn't like, they say, oh, you're early, right? This is before being early, because this is the first they're really just talking about it. It's going to be more intimate setting. So if you just go to Niftorian.com, we'll have some information up there the next day or so around how people who watch the show can attend the demo day. It's going to be really fun. And then if you're an artist, go to Niftorian.com, look at the Accelerator if you want to be part of that. Because basically we introduce you to smart people. There's mentors like Scott who are in there who help you basically make your idea better, more refined, take advantage of things. Even if you're a fine artist, taking advantage of things like the Bored Ape has done and like the principles that they're applying, figuring out how that could help your project. And in generally just having people that are on your side, rooting for your success and trying to help you. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Check it out.
All right. All right, everybody. Until next week, all I have to say is happy hunting.